Well, welcome back. I am going to conclude day number 4 here. The second tower, a bunker that I found, just up a little bit higher. Um, Brush is probably about 3 to 4 feet high, so no real pathway to get to it. But clearly, there was a walkway, probably, I don't know, 80 years ago. Um, this bunker, it's pretty quaint. Like if I had to choose to camp out in here for a couple of days of weather or storm, yeah, I could do it. Probably make a little bit of a house. These ammo bunkers, these ammo storage areas can easily become a small fireplace, and nobody would ever find me up here. I could probably live a couple months up here before anybody would even recognize that there's a trail coming up the side, because the walkway coming up, the stairway is isolated on the train line, which is all fenced off from every angle. So you have to do a little bit of is it parkour to get up and over some things. It's a good thing I'm only, man, I'm gonna be 40 pretty soon. Maybe it's a midlife crisis I'm going through. Nah, I've been doing strange shit all my life. I'd say I don't really know if I'm searching for anything here. I'm taking in the sights. I'm trying to actually be in the moment and not constantly have to predict the future, worry about what's coming, how to prepare for it, do I have the money, just to be in the moment, I guess, is the goal out here. It's such a hard thing to do nowadays because you're just bombarded, just left, right, up and down. Even when you're sleeping, your body's still stressed out. Um, we're constantly overloading ourselves with caffeine and nicotine. Never really give our nervous system a chance to just calm down. And then finally, when you do get to take that maybe one vacation out of the year for a week or two, it's stress just getting to your destination. And then you got some things planned. Okay, you gotta make those timelines, gotta make sure you got the right amount of money, you got the right documentation, the weather's gonna be good, blah, 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 right? I have learned to just not have a plan. And then if I do develop a plan, chances are I'm gonna change it up at the last possible second. Just because I've learned that in my past that whenever I do set up a plan, it never works. It's like I forecast it out. There's a evil force that is, that all-seeing eye, the evil eye, is just on me. Like, okay, we know what he's gonna do. We know where he's gonna be. We know who he's gonna be with. How are we gonna screw it up for him? I just cause him most amount of stress possible. And I've learned a lot of things about that, as far as the reasons why we're all stressed out all the time. The short conspiracy theory, which to me is not a theory whatsoever, is behind the scenes, behind the visible light that we can see, are these things called archons. You can call them demons, It doesn't really make a difference. But they feed off of your negative energy. And they've been running this world for a very long time. The more stressed out you are, the more of a food source you are. So, how does that work? Well, your adrenal glands. Keep the adrenals going. All right. Keep the hippocampus? I can't remember. The two glands in the brain that register anger and stress. Well, anyway, they release the necessary hormones to cause the cortisol, which then, shuts down your body. Body reduces stress levels. Your body's stressed out, so then everything goes into either fight or flight mode. And all of that negative energy, that negative tense energy that you've got cooped up all day long, well, that's by design, guys. That is by design. And our bodies are definitely not designed to be like that all day long. So these things, think about it as a little evil monkey on your back, just sitting there, just sucking up everything, sucking up all the negative energy. Ultimately, fear, right? The more fear it can cause in you, the more it keeps feeding. That's what they know how to do. And when you start to learn how not to fear, how not to be stressed out, is when your life really starts getting hectic, because they need to keep poking buttons, the right buttons that they've known for a long time, to get you stressed out, to get you back on the cart. Because then, if you're not on the cart, they can't feed. Now, yeah, you can call me crazy for this, but I've seen too much. I know what they look like. I know how they operate. I know what they can control, especially electronics or anything electrical for that matter. To me, they are absolutely very real. And the more I started to learn about them, discover them, uncover them, the crazier my life got. I mean, just off the wall stuff that should have put people in either the hospital, mental hospital, in buried 6 feet under. Like, they have thrown everything at me, including the kitchen sink. And yet I keep ticking. I don't know when this cover will run out. Hopefully never. I believe in a higher power. I've had a lot of visions of things, forecasting of things coming. Hell, even the corona. I was never interested in paying attention to the media. And it was like September of 2019. All of a sudden, this little blip came up on YouTube about China building these emergency hospitals in whatever province that was. And I started paying attention to that over the course of just a couple of days. I'm like, there's something about to happen with this. And I was dead on. I'm like, this is going to be the one that spreads across the entire world and shuts down everything as fast as possible. People are going to start panicking. We're going to lose a huge portion of the population. That part did not come true. But I said it was going to last 3.5 years. As quickly as it came in, it was going to fade right out. There was going to be vaccines developed that are going to be pleasantly prescribed to people. Yeah, I'm not one of those. I managed to dodge that jab countless times across different countries. And I still managed to travel across different countries with only those PCR tests, right? And I went through so many airports, and I took up a job as a taxi driver during the corona, and I maybe caught something like the flu for a couple of days, but I was not affected. And then I come over to Germany, and the person I was with is like, "Oh no, you got to get it. You got to get it. You got to get the jab. I'm like, "No, I'm not doing it. There's no reason. Not doing it. Nope. Hear all kinds of things like it's loaded with aluminum and other things to help shut down your nervous system. And after the corona, like, the whole world just shifted into this negative state. It's like everybody's suspicious of each other. There's nobody smiling, nobody's saying hello anymore. I don't understand. And yeah, for myself, I've been married a couple times. To each person, I hate labeling the situation, but I have been attaching myself to energy vampires unknowingly for a hot minute. And in the process, I've produced offspring that I don't recognize. No part of me is found in them. I, I don't relate. I don't understand. There's no connection. And this last marriage that I just walked away from, she was content with keeping me in a mental mind prison within the living room on the couch in a specific corner day in and day out. And I could go to a job that I really didn't like, but I did humble myself because it was cleaning. It was a cleaning job. It did humble me. And then I come back to generally an empty house. The person was never home. I had sick parents that she had to take care of. She was there 3, 4, 5 times a week, multiple hours. And then 3 times in my life, 3 different women introduced methamphetamine to my aura. And I liked the stuff. It got me energetic. It had me doing so much. The first one in Denver introduced me into the life, and it became extremely sexual. So much so forth that I had quit my job as a manager at Old Chicago's to become something of an entrepreneur in the sexual industry, or supervisor, or whatever you want to call it. And I'm not gonna lie, it was fun, but it was sinful. Man, it was sinful. It almost took me down. And then I left. I left the situation in a very unique scenario and disappeared into the Colorado mountains. And was out there for a number of weeks. Cleansed myself. Lived off of crawfish and some food I managed to scavenge from here and there. Then I started walking. I'm like, okay, let's find the nearest town. After being out in the wilderness. Give a call to my brother once I find the local town. He's like, all right, let's get you on a flight back to New York. Get to New York. Things are going good, starting to build up again. I get a call from one of the girls that used to stop over at the place that was interested in becoming a working girl. And somehow, one way or another, she came out to I put on a plane and came right out to New York. Well, I was clean. I was clean for a hot minute. Came across our boss for the taxi service that I was working for. Marijuana, DMT, and mushrooms for sale. And man, did I like DMT. Whew, that was a real awakening. DMT opened my eyes in so many ways, and I started seeing what was really behind the veil. And then this girl showed up, and she managed to locate about 50 miles away source of methamphetamine from an individual that was pretty successful. Had a couple of businesses, $500,000 home, had his life in order. Like, okay, clearly I can see some people can manage this stuff, right? So we got to know him, get back on the stuff. Then the bail started coming down more and more, mixed in with the DMT, and I started seeing all kinds of things. And then I started to realize that the second individual, I could see like beneath the skin, and ultimately I could see the demon, I could see the vampire, like clear as day. I was like, okay, another one sent to me. All right. All right, so then some things happen. I then dip out and I head to Germany. Why do I go to Germany? Because years back I left behind a wife. And this wife was from Turkey. And she was the right person at the right time when I met her. But something always kept pushing me away. I kept leaving her, or like just ghosting her. Something was just never quite right. And this girl, she followed, the Muslim faith. Never done drugs in her life. Barely drank. Like, clean as you can get, right? So I come back to Germany, make things work. And what I forecasted when I first left her was she was going to be glued to taking care of her parents, which, fantastic. But very codependency between her and her mother, and she just can't leave her side. And if you can't leave her side, you can't go anywhere. Can't go anywhere, I'm not living, not doing anything. Well, I forecasted it, and for the first year, I just sat in that house doing absolutely nothing. I was just going crazy trying to leave, or trying to do just anything. And she was just content with going to her job and going to her parents. That was the circle that I was in. I was just left alone for a long time. And after a year, she comes to me and she's like, "Hey, there's this person at work, and she keeps losing weight. Like, she's really skinny, and she's really got a lot of energy." And I'm like, "Huh, interesting." And she's like, "Okay, what do you think it is?" I'm like, "Could be the cane, or it could be the amphetamine." And I started going down a list of things to look for. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that adds up. She's on methamphetamine. And she's like, "Oh, she lost a lot of weight. I think I want to try some." And I look at her, I'm like, what? But I kept it to myself because, one, I was like, what are the chances now, 3 times in a row, 3 different women trying to introduce methamphetamine into my life? And this third one has never done drugs. So I'm like, I give in. I'm like, okay, I don't know any sources here in Germany. I don't know nothing. The neighbors that I've known, one's from Romania, the other one's actually from Italy. And the next day, it was like a perfect lineup. Somehow I was talking to the neighbor, I think about like mushrooms or just something, right? And then she brought up, she's like, "Oh yeah, he used to do crystal." And I'm like, huh? He's like, yeah, he used to do crystal. I'm like, okay, strange. I see him a little bit later on that day, and I asked him, like, man, you used to do, if I understand, crystal is methamphetamine. He's like, yeah, I used to do it. I used to, lost a lot, I was very skinny, lost a lot of weight, and I felt it was good back then. And he started going off about the sexual aspect. I'm like, okay, this is strange, right? All right, so then um, he brings it up. He's like, oh yeah, so you can get it. It comes out of Czech, and like Czech is like the U.S. is Mexico for drugs, apparently. I'm like, okay. So I go home, and literally that night, I look up. I'm like, it's like something just talked to me. I'm like, look up the Asian Bazaar and crystal. Just type in Asian Bazaar crystal Czech. No joke. The very first search was this clip about 2 minutes long. This guy tested it. He went into the Asian markets there. It's like a flea markets. Just went to any random stall and bought a gram of methamphetamine. All right, so you see the lineup, right? All right, well, it's about an hour and a half drive. We've been there before to the Asian bazaars and just didn't know it was a deal over in Chep to get all kinds of random things, everything that's knockoff brand. So I get there. Me and her take the drive. We get there, and then I'm like, okay, let's see what happens. I walk into the first stall, and keep in mind, I'm an American speaking English in Czech, which is now the main language of Czech, talking to a Vietnamese person. How do you just introduce it? Like, hey, I need drugs. Well, I made a universal sign for, and he's like, okay. And I'm like, no, crystal. It's like, okay, how much? And I'm like, 100 euro worth? And then he's like, no, we don't have it. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I start walking away, and he's like, okay, come. Let me see your ID. I'm like, why do you want to see my ID? I guess to make sure I'm not Czech police. And I go to show him my ID, and he's like, no, we don't have it. I gotta walk away. He calls me back. He's like, okay, you wait right here. And then he comes up and brings me 3 grams of methamphetamine. Now, the person I'm with knows that I'm there to get it. Never done this before. So now we go back to the house, drive all the back into Germany, right? International drug smuggler. And I light up. I'm not the vain person, just smoking it was happy enough for me. And then she tried it. And then the sexual experience went on for a long time. And dedicated to the weekends. Then the veil started dropping again. And I started seeing the works behind the scenes. And I started putting all the pieces, the puzzles and pieces together. And she started changing, like showing her true colors. And I started feeling the energy being drained out of me every single day that I was there. Like I was just a battery that I come to find out that this person had married a while back. The reason why I didn't want to be around her was because she was an energy vampire. A large vampire. They all were. And for some odd reason, they like kept trying to introduce this substance into my life that, I'm not going to lie, guys, I don't know how, it made me healthier. It made me younger. Look at me. I am, minus the hair issue, because I've shaved it for good reason. Look at me. I'm 40 years old. And methamphetamine put me on a ultra fasting diet and cleanse my body. I'm not saying to go do it. I'm saying that for whatever reason, my body was able to handle it, and then started producing an effect to see things behind the scenes. And I started noticing patterns. I started noticing all kinds of things because my vibrational sense, my being was just always just like this. It was literally doing this. But I could feel just everything around me. And it wasn't a shaking, a nervous effect, like a twitching effect. It was like I was just super aware. And then started the battle between, I would say, heaven and hell. Started experiencing demons, angels, all kinds of things. Going crazy, but there, for the person that wants to actually hear the story, like in person, I will tell you some things that are just impossible to make up. I've got stories for days. So she started changing. I started realizing or connecting dots or smelling, for that matter, my senses opened up. I started smelling different colognes on her. Different types of body sweat. Things that I thought she thought she was covering up. Every time she was going over to her mother's to take care of him. No, there was something else going on behind the scenes. For a while. And here I thought I was the bad guy for leaving her behind, for not showing love, dedicating my life, blah, blah, blah. It's because there's been something crazy going on for a hot minute. And I'm like, okay. First attempt, I left. I was like, oh yeah, huh. Check this out. So I start packing my gear to go camping. That's what I know how to do. Or ghost and disappearing into the woods. This was back in October. Germany. It's cold, it's wet, it's damp. It's fine, I dealt with it in the past. Military, right? I watched her go for an hour back and forth between the living room to the bedroom where I was packing up. Are you leaving? Are you staying? Are you leaving? Are you staying? Which one are you doing? And then she just kept talking in circles, like saying the same thing over and over and over and over again. I was like, what the fuck? So what is going on? Okay. So finally I get everything kind of like bagged up. And what she does completely blows my mind. I hear her on the phone doing something. After the final, are you going? I'm like, unpack my bag and I just need you out of the room. Just let me do this and I'll be comfortable. And out of nowhere comes these very unique, very tall medical personnel. And my brain's like, these don't look like normal medical ambulance people, and why are they here? So what she did, as a last resort to keep me in her life as a battery, was she called a mental hospital. And they came and they tried to keep me in the house until the Polizei could show up. I'm like, what is happening? Like, I did this entire process as calm as possible when I was packing up because I just need space. I'm not going to fall into a crazy fight. I'm not going to do any of that. I've seen too much of that stuff between spouses and military. I know what I've been through it. Like, nope, I'm not falling into that trap. And because I wasn't falling into the trap, then she set that trap. And then these people started asking me all kinds of weird questions about my life and where I was going and like things that didn't make any sense. Like they were so adamant about knowing where I was going. So I pushed past them out of my house and I get downstairs. Around back I had a crotch rocket, Yamaha R1. They weren't prepared for this. Now, on the way down the stairs, they're like, oh, we just need you to sign some papers. And then we can go. And for that moment, like, I knew everybody was just lying to me. I'm like, okay, bring the papers over to me. And they're like, oh, it's just over here by the ambulance. And I'm like, I get over to the ambulance, or this ambulance looking thing. And no joke, they're like, oh, it's up here. You got to come up here and sign. I look at them like, yeah, I'm not doing that. I'm not stupid. I'm not getting up there. Like everything, every bone in my body was saying that there was something very wrong with the scene. Like I was going to be kidnapped. I've always been kidnapped in the past. I was back in Mexico cartel situation, but anyway, back to this. So I walk around the side of the building. I start the bike. They come running around. I can see they're panicking. They're like, oh shit, we're about to lose him. I get my backpack on. I get the bike started. And they're trying to stop me from, or trying to be in my way, but not really. And it's, as I knew, as long as I was out in public and people could see what was happening, I'd be okay. And so I got past them, and then I took off on the bike. And almost around every corner from that point on, it was a bullseye van, car, like they were just all looking for me. Like, what the fuck is happening? Sorry, what is happening? My ex had pretty much riled up the town to try to keep me in place. Like, who is this person I'm married to? Like the vampire queen of of the vamp world, right? Like, she's got a lot of connections. So I dip out for a week. Actually, yeah, into the woods, camp out. Cold as hell. I couldn't start any fires. I'm like, okay. I did something I didn't really want to do, and I contacted my second wife that was living on the other side of Germany. And she's like, yeah, you can come on, blah, blah, blah. Like, she was expecting me. This is just crazy stuff. She's like, everything she was saying, she was expecting me. Like, okay, get over there. I'm riding through the rain, cold weather. I mean, like, it was just miserable. I stay for a couple days. I detox. I feel just my energy draining out of me again. I'm like, yeah, okay, I know what she is too. Like, just every one of this was just draining my energy horribly. But she's doing it in a tactful way and providing food and warmth at the same time. I'm like, okay. So I rest up, and then I'm like, okay, you know what? Let me head back to the house. Things might be cooled down. So I ride 300 kilometers across Germany in the freezing rain on this bike. Right? I just deal with it. So I get back to the house. I don't have keys. I go out back, start a small fire in the little fire pit area. Stay warm, dry everything off. And there for maybe about an hour, I call her and say, hey, I'm back. Or no, I sent a text a couple hours prior to coming back. And she calls me on her mother's phone, and she's like, they're watching my other phone, and they know that you're traveling, so I want to call you through this one. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, who is watching your phone? And keep in mind that the ex I just left from is like, oh yeah, you should travel back home. Like, okay. Perfectly planned. So I'm sitting back there, relaxing, just drying off. And I see this guy just walk into the backyard. Random person. I'm like, that was a setup. I got no place to run. Okay. Da-da-da. Here comes the second person from the side and third person from the side. And they kind of announced they're police, but they're just really sketchy. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to go with it. I could run. I know I could outrun them. But I'm like, oh, let me just go through with this. So they put me in an unmarked paddy wagon and take me to a hospital. But like a secret hospital. I've never known it was in this town. I've been in this town for years and never knew this thing existed. It's a major complex. Guess where they threw me? In the psych ward. Not just any psych ward, but like the psych ward, where people are screaming for no reason. They're drooling all over themselves, shitting on the floor, like straight up crazy house lockdown. And they throw me in there. First room they put me in, there's no lights. There's a bed with shackles. Not that they shackle me down. I'm like, okay, I guess I'll just add this to the list of random things that have happened in my life. And now I'm thinking, which one of these individuals has set this up? Oh, and I forgot, my mother was involved with this too. Right? Apparently she recommended to either one of my exes that like to play the games back and forth, that they should call the mental hospital. Right? She's in the United States. I'm in Germany. My mother seems to be another, I'll say, one of these energy vampire agents. Oh, we're going to conspiracy, guys. We're going with conspiracy. But it's proven to be astounding. What's the word I'm looking for? Remarkably on point, everything I have uncovered. So, now I'm in a crazy room. Oh, let me back up just a little bit. So the first doctor, let me back up a little more. So the police are like, oh yeah, we need to come and, we had to pick you up and come get you checked out by a doctor because your wife had called and she called the German government and they were worried. I'm like, yeah, okay. So I get to see the first doctor. They asked me like 3 questions. It had nothing to do with my psychology whatsoever. He's like, okay, we gotta send you to another doctor. All right. So we go to see another doctor. Now this one's in the actual psych ward. And there are 2 younger female doctors sitting across from me now, like looking at me with dagger eyes, just like I killed people. I'm like, okay, this is not going to go the way I want, but I'm going to keep a smile on the face. So they start questioning me on things that just just beyond making sense, and I keep telling them I just needed to get away from my crazy ex, and I just wanted to go camping. And they're like, camping? No, who does that in Germany? No. Like you had all these problems on. I'm like, no, guys, listen. I was a sergeant in the military. I had plenty of young soldiers underneath me. They were generally all married, and almost all of them had problems. I know how this goes. Don't feed the monster. And that's exactly what I did. I didn't feed her monster. I didn't feed their monsters. And they were getting so upset that I just would not give them any of my energy. And like, okay, well, we got to keep you here to see the head doctor tomorrow. I'm like, why am I here? Okay. So now the head doctor comes in the next morning at 11 o'clock in the morning, right? Okay. This head doctor already just has daggers for me. And she looks just like my mother. I'm like, what in the world is happening here? And so I run down the exact same listed things. Like, we got into these arguments, and like I just wanted to pack up these things, and I wanted to leave, and blah, 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 and go camping and just take a break from everything. And she runs down the same list, and like, she's getting mad because I'm pulling apart her power trip that this woman has. She's one of those people that got picked on in school for sure, and then picked out this position, and like I was the only person that has probably ever picked apart everything she said so meticulously, so perfectly balanced in my communication to show that I was all mentally here. She didn't like it at all. So she gives me an ultimatum. She's like, okay, so if you sign here, right? Everybody's lied to me at this point. They're like, oh, you just have to see this doctor and you can go home. You see this doctor, you go home. See this doctor, you go home. All right, all done this. I'm like, now she's like, oh yeah, if you just sign this, then maybe you'll be here for a week or two and we're gonna get you mental help. I'm like, I don't need anything. I don't need anything. Just guys, just let me go. And why am I in this crazy psych ward? But like any other part of the hospital would have been okay. Just why here? Okay, so now, what happened the next day? Oh, so now I'm in the place for a couple days. The second day, all of a sudden, my wife shows up with a bag, just with all my clothes and shampoos and all this stuff. Like, I'm getting ready to be here. Oh, this back up. Sorry, this is the doctor. So the other ultimatum was, okay, if you don't sign, then I'm going to recommend to the judge of the town that you stay here for 6 weeks. I'm like, oh, so my options are sign over my life to you, where I could get released in a week, or 3 weeks, or maybe a month, just at your discretion. Or take the chances and be here 6 weeks for evaluation. Keep in mind, nobody knows I'm at this hospital. Like, nobody knows I exist. So I'm like, okay, let's do the smart thing. I put all my poker chips on the table. I'm like, you know what? I'm not signing. I don't need to be here. This is no. So she's like, okay, I'll have something for you in the morning. Then we'll see what happens. So she sends off a message to the local judge. And apparently, the local judge has to come down with a lawyer to evaluate me. So they come the next day. I see the judge. And the judge is like, okay, yeah, I'm going to recommend you stay here for 6 weeks. I'm like, this older woman, late 60s, like perfectly dressed, like just business professional. I'm looking at the judge like, why am I here? And she's asking questions about this report and things that my crazy wife decided to put in there, like she knew just to put in there. By the way, I found out after day number 2, when my wife showed up, apparently she used to work at the complex years back. So, she knew about this place and knew what it could do. Okay. So the judge is like, yeah, if you wanted to appeal, see our higher court level, then we have to send off this message and whatnot. I'm like, yeah, let's do that, because I don't belong here, guys. Don't belong here whatsoever. And she got mad at that. Okay, so now, it's good to get off my chest like this. So now, 3 days goes by. I hear something from, they're out of the staff there. There's one younger girl in her 20s and then one older guy, probably, maybe closer to my age. And they knew from day one I was never supposed to be there. I could see clear as day I was never supposed to be in that place. And it was like, okay, I'm going to put in recommendations for you. At least get you into a lower security housing. I'm like, oh, thank God. I can leave this crazy hallway with all these individuals. Like, some of them were there for real reasons, guys. I mean, I couldn't go outside into the hallway just to chill for a minute. I could be sitting in a chair like this, and then randomly, just one random person would start walking up to me and just would stand like this close, very uncomfortably, with the sausage hanging out of their mouth, and then just staring at the wall. And I'm like, I guess I go back into my room, and I just get up nice and calmly and go inside. Not to mention the random people who just come inside my room. I had one guy trying to pretend he was a doctor. And he came in with a doctor's jacket on and whatever else, like that movie Dream Team back in the 80s. This guy comes in like, it's a good thing I can laugh. Even in the moment, I could still find something to be funny about. And he comes in, he's like, hey, are you doing okay? Do you need anything? Like, and he's looking out of the room, and I'm like, okay. Now, a while back, I might have been in jail and prison just a little bit. I recognize when people are scouting things out to steal some things. And clearly this guy was not a doctor. So when he walks in, he's like, he's asking me these questions. I'm like, dude, I know who you are. You're not a doctor. Get the hell out of my room. Get out. And he's like, oh, sorry. And he leaves the room. I'm like, oh, man. Dream team. Okay. So now, I get news that there's going to be a board meeting for me. Where all of the doctors for the wing, including the head doctor of the entire installation. So I was there the 5th day. Yeah, so 5 days total. This is what happens now. So that morning, at 11 o'clock in the morning, I sit down at this table with this head doctor right next to me. I mean, the head dude. The one that looks like my mother that I really despise at the moment because she was so adamant about keeping me in this hospital. And yeah, it was just something very strange about that. And then 3 more doctors, well, 1 staff, 2 doctors, a recording person, and then somebody else, right? So I'm surrounded by all these people. And I go to explain my case as professional as I know how. As if I am at a promotion board meeting with the sergeant major and the first sergeants. Okay, I got this. And clearly, within 30 seconds to a minute, the main doctor, he gives me a wink like this. He can see that I'm perfectly fine. And then he starts talking to these other doctors. And they can see that everything is just fine. But the one that looks like my mother, her whole tune changed because she was now, her head boss was there. And she had to act so differently and nicely. And like, I pulled that woman apart when I first met her. And then I, like, through the staff, like, I called her out. Like, it was just, okay, Harry Potter. You know the episode, the one series where there was a Catwoman in the pink button-down thing. There's just always prancy, like, right? And, like, Harry Potter, you will not do this, and, like, inscribing that thing on his, right? That was that woman. I swear to you, that was that woman. So, the board. Okay, so the board. Now, I passed it with flying colors. After the board meeting was done, about an hour later, I had to go then find a staff member to find out what was the deal. And they're like, oh yeah, they're going to release it. So I'm like, first off, was anybody planning on telling me this? Second off, when are they planning to release me? Because I'm done with hearing random blood screaming cries and screams happening between the hours of 1 and 3 a.m. from my next door neighbors. I was like, oh, we're going to release it tomorrow. I'm like, why tomorrow? Why can I just not leave now? Guys, I'm keeping my brain, I'm holding it together because I'm like, if there's ever a moment anybody was going to go crazy, it was going to be this, forced to go crazy. Okay, I'm like, okay, why tomorrow? Like, oh, well, we could release you today, but we have to do some paperwork. And I look at my phone because I now have my phone. I'm like, okay, it says 4:20. I bet he leaves at 5 o'clock. I bet that's why he doesn't want to do the paperwork now. I look at him like, no, you can do the paperwork now. I'd like to leave this place now. And he's like, and this doctor's like, Oh, okay, all right. He goes into the office, does something rather. They have to call my wife, who was responsible for putting me in this place, to come and pick me up. So now, out of the fryer into the frying, no, sorry, out of the frying pan into the fryer. So, her plan worked to a degree. And she came and picked me up, and I played nice and gave her the good feelings that she needed. But in the back of my mind, I'm like, okay, the rabbit, the goose is cooked. I don't, I just have to plan a way to get out of here now. At the right moment. So, go back to the house, settle down. I said I forgave her for everything that she did. And she could, like, oh my God, I already knew that she would never take ownership for even making the phone call to the place. She'll never admit to this day that she was responsible for what the government did. So, my next paycheck rolls around, or drops in, and I dip out. Just ghosted her. Rightly deserved. I go to Prague. And this is a whole nother story. But I get to Prague. And everything I've ever learned about the Veil, the Archons, the Devil, I learned existed in full effect and within that city. I'm going to save this for another episode because I sat down at a table in a restaurant that was very off limits to the public with some very, very evil people. And they were expecting me at that dinner table. And all of this lines up. All of it. So we're going to go with that, crazy conspiracy. But yeah, so this is just one event out of many that I have. Could write a book, could write many books, I don't know. But I'd much rather have an audience in person. Preferably others that have gone through similar things. So, thank you for listening. I think it's about to start raining here, so I gotta get out of this bunk and climb down the side of the hill. You guys are awesome. Thank you for bearing with me as I express myself, get out all this stuff that's been bottled up. It's definitely helping. This is the therapy I need right here. Alright, Ghost is out.